Good evening. Hello folks, thank you very much for joining again. Welcome back to the show. Sorry we're a day late this week, but I had something on last night and it just wasn't movable, so we had to shift it. But thank you very much for being accommodating and joining me a day later. I still think we've got plenty to talk about from the Grand Prix at the weekend because, I don't know, I thought it was interesting. I know it was a circuit that's not the best for overtaking on, and that absolutely was proven with a modern car on that old school circuit. Didn't quite match up. But having said that, I thought there was loads to keep us interested, loads to keep us entertained. I was on the edge of my seat throughout that whole spell where we had Lewis pushing for that gap, that pit stop gap before that virtual safety car came out. So loads of stuff to keep us on the edge of our seat, which I really enjoyed. I hope you did too. And of course, we have got some news that you will have all, I'm sure, or many of you seen yesterday that I'm very excited about. Really proud to say that I will be taking over the Wheeler Dealers Workshop from Ant Anstead, who does it currently. I'll be taking over from the new year. We'll be forming a whole set of new shows with Mike Brewer and I, and I'd love to talk about that in a moment as well. So let's quickly say hello to everybody. We've got, who have we got? Jeffrey in Montreal. Hi Jeffrey. Denmark, Brian Christensen, hello. Jim is in Ohio, USA. You guys have got a bit on tonight, haven't you? Something happening big out there today. I hope it goes whichever way you want it to go. Northern California, Derek Wilkins. I've got somebody joining me very shortly from your neck of the woods. Well, he was Southern California. He'll be on in a moment. Mike Brewer, of course, as I said earlier. Hello from Hungary. Tamas Santo and Ireland. Johnny Tyrrell, you're a regular, I recognise you. So thank you all. New Zealand, Lisbon, Portugal, California, Lugano in Switzerland. Thank you all so much. South Wales as well. I mean, thank you. I appreciate it. You are all over the world and I could not be more grateful that you all turn up every week and come and join us. So there's the thank yous, there's the hellos done. I would like to, as I said a moment ago, I'd like to talk about Wheeler Dealers first, because that's the biggest news in my life right now. It's a big news for everybody who watches the show, and to help me with that, as I promised you, I've got a special guest. So if the technology works, I would like to welcome my buddy and co-host Mike Brewer.
Hello, hey up fella, how are you?
Hey, I think it's working. How about that?
Yes, very good, very good.
So the news is out. You and I are going to be back on screen together, husband and wife again.
Yes, husband and wife on screen. I love having you as my my television husband. Yeah, I'm very excited by it. Me and you created something special when we made Dream Car last year, and Dream Car was such a success globally. It reached a global audience. It touched people in the places that car shows don't really reach. You know, we did a lot of good for people and the car community in general. And then lots of things have been happening in California whilst I've been making Wheeler Dealers. Lots of things to draw me back home. Number one is, my family. And my mum's not very well, so I wanted to come home and be closer to my mum and dad. And then the second thing was Ant's life was starting to change rather excitingly. And Ant had his show go out last year, which was Master Mechanic. And again, at the same time, me and you were doing Dream Car, that show was a huge success. Yeah. So it was inevitable that Ant was going to do another version of that. He does it with all of our blessing. I just wish the guy all the best. Yeah. And
I think that's the nicest thing about all of this, isn't it? That, even for me, taking over the workshop from Ant with Ant's blessing is a really nice way to do it. And, as we said in our little video the other day, Ant's going to pop in every now and again. I'll be able to give him a call if I, need some advice or need help with something, and he'll be able to do the same with me. So it's a nice little, it's a threesome we got going, isn't it? In the nicest possible way.
It is a Wheeler Dealer family, and, for us, for you, working with you in the past and working with Ant, we're all about the cars. That's what we're about. We're not stars. We're not starry people. We're not in it for I've been doing this for 23 years. Look at me. I'm sitting in my pajamas talking to you. And I'm the least starry person you'll ever.
And for us,
but for us, it's all about the cars. And we just want to do the right thing by the cars, save them, rescue them, put them out there for people to enjoy. And we want to entertain and inform along the way. And that's what me and you and Ant and Ed in the past have successfully done. So I'm delighted that Discovery Channel have put their faith in the brand, so much so that they brought it back to the UK, gave me a new guy to come and work with, and give me another huge contract. So I'm delighted with it.
Well, I'm delighted as well. And lots of people have sent in questions already. So I'm going to pick a few out. There's a couple that I didn't write down. So apologies if I don't get your names right. But I'll remember the questions, because there was definitely one that I remember stood out to me, because I think it was a guy called Brian. Sorry if I got it wrong. But he says, Mike, have you now traded up to your dream mechanic?
Do you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Every mechanic's been a dream mechanic to work with. They have, Ed had an amazing skill set, a very talented individual, very determined, knew exactly what he was doing. And, you've always, that's a hard act to follow, when you've got Ed and the 13 years he did. And he was incredible. And then Ant steps into the workshop, completely owns it from day one. And Ant's skill set is just different. Ant's a very good orator. He's good at explaining things and being very teacher-like. But his fabrication skills are unbelievable. I mean, the guy he could weld butter. Honestly, he can. He could weld butter together. That's what I'm saying. He's brilliant. And then working with you last year, you come from a completely different engineering background, where it's all about the detail and your tenacity to make things absolutely perfect. And then we churn out cars like that Volkswagen Beetle and that Pinto engine. And we do things like that, and I go, wow, I've got some really talented people around me. And that's what makes it exciting.
Really good. Can't wait. Couple of other questions around, first, somebody says, when is our first show going out? I think I know the answer. I think I'm right in saying, is that sort of August 21 or autumn 21?
It's around the end of summer, beginning of autumn next year. Right. We still have another series of Wheeler Dealers with me and Ant yet to play, and that'll be playing in the new year. So we've got a nice series of that. But don't worry, because me and you will keep people entertained in the run-up to the new series, which will be starting in the summer. We'll be doing lots more online stuff, activities, engaging with the audience a lot more, and bringing them in. I think both me and you, and the crew, for that matter, are determined to bring the audience in a little bit more and just make it a bit more inclusive. So much so we're not going to say quite yet, but the location we've chosen is a location where we might be able to sort of open the doors every now and then and bring people in to let them have a chat with us and a look.
Which would be brilliant, wouldn't it? So very excited about that. And also, I saw somebody else ask, we will be doing more dream cars as well, won't we? So we're not only, next year for us is going to be busy, because we've got, I think, 2 seasons of Wheeler Dealers to film and another season of Dream Car stuck in the middle. So we're flat out, but all in a good way.
Yes, Michelle, you'll have to get somebody else to put that shelf up. I'm busy. It's going to be an incredibly busy year. But look, the truth is, for those of you out there that know me and know you, I don't do not busy. I'm only ever this guy. And I live for work. I live for work. I don't like sitting on my ass. I just want to go out every day and create something or make something. Or if I'm not on TV restoring cars, I'm in my garage restoring cars. It's as simple as that. That's what I do for a living. So next year is going to be flat out. We're going to be really busy, but we will find time for people. That's what we will do, and we're really good at that.
Well, and on that note, we'll find time for other stuff. You've got other businesses that you run in the background as well as all these things. I have as well. And as somebody's just said, will you still be doing these shows on YouTube? Absolutely. I absolutely plan to stay heavily involved in Formula One through the YouTube channel as well. Maybe there'll be some Wheeler Dealers or car stuff come on board this YouTube channel too. Who knows? But I absolutely going to stay in touch with Formula One and stay live on the YouTube channel as much as I can. So we'll have to work out a schedule, but I absolutely will. We'll make time for it. So that would be great. Mike, a question for you. I've missed who it was. Oh no, Kevin Brown says, have you now moved back to the UK?
Yes, I'm back in the UK. This is my house where I've lived for many, many years. I moved back here getting on for 2 weeks ago now. So I've gone through my quarantine period. Living in Southern California, I said to you off air earlier, it's been kind of weird because I spent the last 6 years in shorts. And it's not until you put jeans on for the first time, you go, what are these things at the bottom of my legs? I don't like these things. And long socks. And being back here has been, it's been a little bit of a challenge in terms of, the weather. And I can't go out anywhere because I've been quarantining, but, venturing out into my garden, front and rear, and trying to, tidy up a little bit. It's a different world. It's bracing, it's cold, it's wet, it's damp. But yes,
you'll get used to it eventually, Mike.
I'll get used to it immediately. I'm back here, and I'm actually genuinely, for the first time in 6 years, I mean this, I'm looking forward to a bit of winter.
Yeah, good. We'll see if you still say that in a few weeks' time.
In January, yeah. Ask me that again in January.
Mario L says, how will we film the show working around the COVID protocols? You guys have been doing this for some time now, haven't you? So you've got experience of this out there.
Yes, I have. So Discovery Channel take this stuff very seriously. The last thing they want is anyone to go down with COVID, because COVID will stop production for weeks. So that's no good when you've got people just sitting at home for weeks. So how we did it in America, every time me and Ant were together, so if we're in a workshop together or we're in a car driving together, we would have a 15-minute COVID test before the day started. And we would have the COVID test be told to either wait at home or sit in the car outside. You get a text message within half an hour to say you're clear, and then you go to work. And you can be quite safe in that environment then, because you mix with nobody else in the meantime. And we done that on every time we filmed together. That's how we handled it. There are a few challenges in terms of wheeler dealers. Part of the format of wheeler dealers, which has been robbed by my wonderful friend Alex at Car Throttle, is hold out your hand. Is the big handshake. And that is part of the wheeler dealers sort of format. People want to see the deal being done. And that becomes a little bit of a problem because, do you shake somebody's hand if you don't know who they are or where they've been?
Hold out your elbow.
Hold out your elbow. So we're going to find, we will find creative ways. You might see two gloved hands coming in for a handshake. Yeah. But listen, let's be more optimistic than that, please. Let's say by the time we get into January, February, and I'm shaking people's hands and selling cars, there'll be a vaccine on the market. And we're done.
Let's hope so. Right, there was another question. I tell you what, I've just got to answer this one because Finlay Austin and a number of people have said that in my book, when I wrote my book, there's a section in my book where I, tongue-in-cheek, said that I will never, ever fix another road car. And part of that sentence that cropped up in the book was because I was talking about my neighbours and my family who always, knowing what I've done in the past, always come around going, my 1985 Ford Fiesta's got a knocking noise from the front left. Could you come and have a look? And so I put in this thing, and as I've been telling everybody, I hate road cars. I'm not fixing the other road car. I'm all about racing cars, so just leave me alone. So it was tongue in cheek, Finlay, and yes, I'm very happy. And that's genuinely one of the nice things. I'm really happy to be back working on different cars. Because if you think about it, the very reason I got involved in Formula One and in engineering was because I loved getting my hands dirty. That's what I started doing. And it's actually been a few years, really, since I've been doing this. So getting back in the workshop with Mike in Dream Car and now with Wheeler Dealers is exactly going back to where I started. It's what I love. So I'm very happy about that.
You not want me to just... Shall I just go and buy you 20 racing cars and then you'll be happy?
Well, someone else did just say, can we do a Wheeler Dealers Formula One car, which I'd be well up for.
That'd be great. You can buy a second-hand Formula One car.
Yeah, you can.
You can, yeah. One of those old demo ones, the ones that they use for publicity. I know a couple of people who've owned one or two of those and put things like Cosworth engines in them. Not Formula One Cosworths, but, out of an XR4 or whatever, engines in them and sort of turn them into quite fruity little cars.
I'm up for that. So let's speak.
I knew you'd be up for that.
Jonathan Moore says, Mike, did you vote before you left the USA?
Absolutely not.
All right, let me see what else we've got here. we've got an ongoing joke in this chat every week where there seems to be a growing number of people taking the piss out of Valtteri Bottas every week because he keeps losing races to Lewis Hamilton and everyone keep nailing him hard. Everyone's now saying Bottas to wheeler dealers for 2021. There we go. Let's see. What cars do you own? Both of us. So, well, I'll tell you mine because mine's really quick. You've got a long list. So my cars, I've got, in fact, you know what? Today for me was like an episode of Wheeler Dealers because I woke up this morning to take the kids to school. The car had a flat tyre. So I had to go spend ages getting that off and take it somewhere to get it fixed because I didn't have a spare. So that was the first thing. Then my wife rented a van to move some stuff for something for her business and dented the back. So I ended up pulling the back doors apart to be able to push the bodywork back apart, push the dent out of that. So, oh, where's Mike gone? Mike's disappeared. Mike, are you still here? Hang on, let me stick us back on there. So essentially my car is, I have a Range Rover and I have a little Mini. So that's me. Mike has a very long list. I don't know where he's gone. His Zoom's disappeared. But I'll try and get him back in a moment. But he has a long list an incredibly impressive list of cars, which I'll let him explain if he does come back. But he's got everything. In fact, Mike has one of my dream cars, a really early Porsche 911. I think it's something like he'll tell you, but I think maybe a 77 or 78 911, which in a beautiful blue colour, which is one of my dream cars. So yeah, he's got an amazing list, and I'll let him talk you through it if he comes back. I'll keep an eye on his Zoom feed, but he's just gone. Let me see. No, he's gone. Right, well, we'll get him back if we can. But yeah, I'm very excited, genuinely very excited about Wheeler Dealers. It is a really big deal. I'm only realising now, if I'm honest, how big a deal it is. It's one of those shows that I always kind of watched when I was... it might be the 40-minute timeout, says Clansom. Yes, it could be that. Mike, if you're watching this, and you may well be, is it that you've clicked over the 40 minutes? Just try and zoom back in, log back in with the same link. Yeah, I'm only realising Wheeler Dealers was one of those shows that I used to kind of watch in a hotel room around the world because it was always on. Discovery Channel was one of those things you could always get. And even if it was subtitled, you could understand it. It was spoken in English. So I ended up watching loads of them. But it was kind of that. And then every now and again I'd watch it. I'm only now realising how big it is around the whole world. It's huge. And for a lot of people, it's huge. And the messages that I've had over the last day or so have been firstly brilliant. And I thank you for all of them if you sent me one. I really appreciate it. But also a massive eye-opener into just what this means to people. And, I'm now feeling a little bit of a responsibility to take on this baton and basically not fuck it up. Wheeler Dealers is now about to start its 17th season, which is an incredible number. And, there's a possibility I could be there when this thing reaches 20 years old. And that would be incredible. That would be amazing. I hope we can do that. And there's a certain responsibility and pressure that goes with that. So I hope it goes well, but I'm really looking forward to it. Right, until we get Mike back, I'm going to switch things up to Formula One. So let's get onto that because that's what we were intending to do tonight. But I do genuinely thank you for all the messages. I can see them all coming in in congratulations because it's a big deal for me. And it's also very handy because there's been hardly any work in 2020. So for 21 to be so busy, that's also great. Let's chat Formula One. What I haven't done this week is, unfortunately, and I apologise if that's a shame for you, is save a load of your questions. Partly because I've just had a disaster of a day on so many levels today. I haven't had much time. But I've seen loads of great questions coming through. So let's talk about the race. I also want to talk about the Lewis Hamilton situation. The no contract, and same with Toto, no contract yet. So we'll definitely talk about that. But you guys fire in your questions. I'll try and answer as many as I can. Let's talk about the race. First of all, we can't go any further without congratulating Mercedes on what's an incredible achievement. 7 World Championships is a mind-blowing feat. I mean, it's insane. I spent 10 years trying to achieve one, and we did it in the end. So to achieve the number that they have achieved over and over is just staggering. I can't tell you how much has to go into that. And the fact that, you know, people are getting annoyed and pissed off that there's no competition for them is not down to Mercedes, it's down to everybody else. Mercedes have really just set the benchmark that everyone else is trying to match, and at the moment they just can't. And that shows the levels that Mercedes are still continuing to push at. So massively impressed, huge congratulations to everybody involved, and there are thousands of people that go into that achievement, and they all deserve credit, so well done. But the race, let's talk about the race. I did a video yesterday, you'll have seen it, or some of you will have seen it, I'm sure, about a couple of controversies that a lot of people seem to get wound up about. Firstly, around Sebastian Vettel and that pit stop. So my take on that was that it certainly wasn't deliberate, as lots of people were suggesting, but it was just a series of cock-ups, which is kind of symptomatic of Ferrari in recent times, isn't it? Whether it's strategic or whether it's pit stops or whether it's driving, they're making too many mistakes. Oh, where's Mike back? Is he coming? Hello, Mike. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It was
40-minute limit.
I reached my 40-minute limit. I don't know. We've got, as you said, you know, welcome back to England. We've got rain coming through the roof, and it's tripped the electricity, unfortunately. Oh, no. So I apologise.
Don't worry. Well, listen, we've moved it on to Formula One. We're just talking about we're talking about Sebastian Vettel.
Yes.
And the disaster that is Ferrari at the moment. In fact, you and I were chatting about this before we came on air, about how Sebastian's making so many mistakes inside the car, but equally the team are making strategic mistakes. And now on Sunday we had the pit stop crew making mistakes or having failures, whether it was a human error or error of some equipment or component. It's just mistakes everywhere, and that ultimately is one of the main reasons they're not winning races and championships.
Yeah, and there's something about Sebastian that, you know, it's the way you carry yourself as a Formula One driver in the paddock. I'll give you an example. If you look at Lando is just he's smiling, he's happy. You can see when he's being interviewed by somebody else, other people walk past, other race drivers, other team bosses, pat him on the shoulder. Everyone wants to be around him. The smiley people. The smiley people in Formula One. Sebastian just looks like a punctured balloon constantly. He just looks like somebody's just, taken away his birthday party and he's 5 years old. Charles Leclerc is not only beating him in qualifying on the race circuit, he's also beating him publicly in just being a Ferrari. Charles ain't got a lot to talk about because the car's failing. So, but he still holds up that dignity of Ferrari. Where Seb doesn't. He just got beaten.
Well, I think that's ultimately what's at the crux of all this. He is beaten, and I think psychologically he's blown to pieces. And, being an elite sportsman or being elite in any industry, you can only be elite. You can only be the best if you've got, first of all, the skill, the talent. You've got to have the equipment, but you've also got to have the mental state to be able to do that, to carry all that out. And that's not to be underestimated. So as soon as you start to go into a spiral, a downward spiral where things aren't working, you're getting beaten up in the media, you start to very quickly cave in. And we know that Sebastian is one of those people, isn't he? He's an emotional character. We've seen it even on track at times when he gets petulant or he throws his toys out of his pram. I don't believe for a second he's lost his talent, but I think he's lost it up here.
I do believe you're right. Yeah, he has lost it mentally. And I think the mental game, most psychologists will tell you, especially around the world of Formula One or top athletes, they will tell you that the psychology of it is more than 50%. It's, you could be slightly unfit. I remember standing at the back of the paddock having cigarettes with Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and then he went on to win the Grand Prix. So you could be slightly unfit, you could be slightly not caring, but if you're mentally strong, you can still put it on. If you've got the confidence in yourself. And I think that's part of it, isn't it? And it's having the confidence in your teammates, yourself, and your equipment that enables you to go that 10 tenths faster every lap, because you know that everyone around you's done their job right, so you can do your job right. and he's completely lost that.
And I have to say, I think the same thing applies to everybody in the team at Ferrari. You know, they've had so many failures, so many bad decisions made, and even the team are being beaten up in the media that I can tell you from experience, being inside a team, if the whole world is firing pelters at you, it affects you. You know, the guys and girls inside that garage and around that pit stop crew, they're not famous, they're not, you know, well rehearsed in being in front of the media and dealing with this stuff. So it hurts if somebody's firing, you know, abuse at you. And
if you look
those things
at
can affect the psychology of those people too.
Yes, and if you look at those shots, it's a really good point, Elvis, because if you look at the shots when they cut back to the garages, during the race, they often cut back to the garages and you see the mechanics sitting in the rows of chairs. You would have been one of them. Every time they cut back to the McLaren garage and they're fighting for 9th and 10th position, all the mechanics are like that. And they're all excited, right? They cut back to the Ferrari garage. Every mechanic is sitting there like that in the Ferrari garage. Every one of them. And
that's true.
That's how it plays out on the track. And yet the Ferrari are fighting for maybe with Leclerc 5th or 6th spot, and McLaren all the way down there, maybe in 7th or 8th spot. Yet they are still rearing their guy on, where Ferrari have already lost the race because they're not front runners.
I agree. I think Shane Dunn sums it up. He says Vettel went to Ferrari to do exactly what Schumacher did. He thought it would be him beating Schumacher's records, not Lewis, and he's just lost his head. I think there's some definite truth in that.
I think Leclerc's got a big shoehorn in there somewhere as well. Once you put that kid in the car, he was, when that car was last year, when they put him in that car, he could have achieved anything.
Yeah. Well, that's another really good point before we move too far on then, because your teammate can have a huge impact on you as a driver, and particularly if you're a 4-time world champion and the man, you know, and a kid comes along and starts beating you, it can destroy you. And I've seen it happen, you know, when Kimi came to McLaren and I was working there at the time. Kimi came in as David Coulthard's teammate. So DC had been with us for years. He was a well-established Formula One driver, already a Grand Prix, multiple Grand Prix winner. Kimi came along and kind of destroyed him pretty early on, and I saw David Coulthard get taken to pieces mentally, to the point where he started looking for help in that department with psychologists, and you know, one of the first drivers to do that. Didn't really work for him, but it just blew him apart and he couldn't handle it. And I think that's not to be underestimated, how much of an impact that can have. Probably similar at places like Red Bull, where Alex Albon is going up against a Max Verstappen, or a Valtteri Bottas is going up against a Lewis Hamilton. If you get beaten every single week, it's got to hurt.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I thought was sad about the weekend, and I sat like you on the edge of my seat. I thought it was possibly, and I really got a lot of respect for the kid, and I really like him. I think he's great in interviews. He's great in the car. I like it. Some of these moves are really exciting, but I thought we'd just see the last of Albon as an F1 driver at the end of this season. And I felt quite sad about that, because the kid was just, again, trashed during the race.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, lots of people have said exactly that. What will happen to Alex Albon? Is that the last we've seen him in a Grand Prix car? My feeling on that is I don't think it's the last we've seen him in a car, because I think he'll see the season out. But I don't think he'll be back next year. I think he's not done enough. And I agree with you, Mike. I think he's one of these kids that's definitely got talent. You can't argue with that. He's shown it in the junior categories coming up towards Formula One. He's got a great attitude. But if you're Red Bull, he's not doing the job. You know,
no,
Max Verstappen is proving what that car's capable of.
Yeah, you can't be consistently half a second slower than your teammates. No. You simply can't, and expect to live out a season and make mistakes along the way, because you've got these kids coming through from GP2, and what's that little Japanese kid that's coming on? I forget his name now. But I watched one of the races. Yeah, he's just
Tsunoda.
He's dynamite. So that's the kind of, you know, that is the kind of kid that's going to go into a Red Bull and start, like Leclerc did. He's going to start going into a Red Bull and he's going to start hanging on to the coattails of somebody like Vettel. And not Vettel, sorry, Verstappen. He's going to hang on to the coattails of Verstappen, push Verstappen into a mind, that mental, we call it the Coulthard head, where it starts tailing off a cliff. and you end up with that cycle again. But it's nothing new. It's probably been happening in Formula One for generations.
Yeah, I think you're right. Lots of people agreeing with you. Albon is probably out of the Red Bull program. Carola Rue says, I still hope that Albon gets a chance in AlphaTauri. That's looking more and more unlikely, I have to say, because of Yuki Tsunoda. It almost seems like a done deal that he will be stepping in alongside Pierre Gasly at AlphaTauri, which means that within that Red Bull program, there's only one seat left, and that's the Red Bull team alongside Max. So let's talk about that. Who's going to get that? Because if it's not going to be Alex Albon, which it's not a done deal yet, but it's looking unlikely, I think the only two candidates realistically left are the Hulkenberg, or Sergio Perez. Both very experienced, both qualified. One of them in Perez, driving on fire at the moment, had a great race at the weekend. Hulk has shown very well in the opportunities he's had this year as stepping in as a supply teacher. But Sergio Perez also brings a huge amount of money, which you might on first glance say, well, Red Bull don't need that. But it's not to be sniffed at. It's probably something in the region of $15 million, which is not a small amount. So I think we could see Sergio Perez stepping up to a Red Bull before you know it.
Totally agree. Yeah. And before you got in there about the money, I thought, it'd be a bit about the money, because Hulkenberg will come with a wealth of experience, as in sat in several cars. So he can bring that knowledge along to an engineer like yourself and say, that needs adjusting there and this bit needs adjusting there. I can feel it in my arse. Where Perez can't give that ultimate experience because he hasn't sat in a lot of cars, but Hulkenberg has. But Perez does come with that huge, great big suitcase. No, not holdalls. No, it's not even that. It's a FedEx truck full of bullion. And that's got to help any team, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Because, Red Bull's a business. They're not in this just for fun. They're a business. They've got to make the numbers work. And, particularly as we go into an era where we're sort of cost capped and money's going to become tighter, to have someone bring a huge chunk of that budget along for you will definitely help. So,
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Like a fan, I want to ask you a question. They've always tried, and you are behind the scenes in Formula One. They've always tried to cost cap Formula One and to bring the cost down, to bring the smaller teams up and to make it more competitive. But the bigger teams have always found a way around the cost capping by whatever they do, testing somewhere else or getting a component built by somebody else but bought in cheaply, but they fundamentally paid for it elsewhere. Do you think you're likely to see some of that as we move into this new phase of, because the budget is being slashed not by like 10 million, it's being slashed by like 100 million.
Yeah. It's a huge chunk. What they've always done in the past, because they've never actually had an absolute cost cap, as in a number. This is the first time they're doing that. But what they've always done in the past to cut costs is to ban certain technologies that cost a load of money, or certain materials that the bigger teams have found a way to create an advantage with. So if they spend a huge amount of money on something like a metal in the engine like beryllium that we had at Mercedes when I was there, they ban it. So you couldn't use that material anymore. You'd have to go back to the drawing board. Now what they're doing, and this is where I hope we go with this, now we're just putting a cost cap, so an absolute number. You can't spend more than this number. And in doing that, for me, what I'd love to see is them to then open up all those technical regs and say, look, you can't spend more than this, but you can spend it on whatever you want. Because you're still not going to spend any more. Yeah. And we might see some amazing innovation, some amazing materials science development, or whatever it might be.
I think you see some amazing
at that place.
I think you're right, but I think we'll see some amazing cheating still, because there will be. They've always done it, and the Notorious, they are so competitive. It's easy, isn't it? For I give you, this is just a very loose term, and whether your listeners agree, but it's easy to say Ferrari or Mercedes go and buy a small little engineering company on the outskirts of Milan somewhere that manufacture beryllium into the shape of just the right size piston to fit into their car, and then for them to own large shares in that company and then to buy that product from them at a very cheap rate, therefore bringing them below that cost cap. So there'll be loads of ways.
Really interesting.
It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a lot of cheating. I'd like to open up the book.
Well, for the very first time, we've got the sporting regulations that we've always had, we've got the technical regulations, and now we've got the financial regulations. That's never happened before. So I know when we get a new set of technical regs, there's a whole team of people that sit there, go through it with a fine-tooth comb, looking for whatever opportunity or loophole they think they might be able to bend around the rules and find an opportunity. Cool. That's how it's always been. It's going to be exactly the same with these financial regs. You're going to have a series of accountants who are going to be the most valuable people in Formula One now, looking for ways to be creative with their accounting.
Yeah, it's going to be brilliant. I also think when we go to that new technical regulation, I know everyone out there is going to disagree with me and think I'm talking crap, but let's go for a wet tyre choice, a soft tyre, a hard tyre. Go down to 3 tyres. Let's not keep having tyre after tyre after tyre. Just get those kids driving those cars around in the same equipment effectively almost at the same time, and that's what I'd like to see.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, knock a tyre off. We don't need 4 tyres, including the wet.
I'm with you. I think that's a good shout. Simplify it. It's too complicated for people who stumble across the sport on TV. They've got no idea why one car is going a second faster than another because the tyre might be a different colour or what that means. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right, let's get some out of the chat. Varun Sambi says, Mike for Ferrari team principal. Fancy that?
I can't speak Italian, except for I can do a little bit affare da quattro rotte, grazie mille, which is wheeler dealers, thank you very much.
Well, it doesn't matter what you say, as long as you do that.
Affare da quattro rotte. Yeah, I don't think the Italians will have me over there.
Okay, look, I've got this is the killer question. Okay, I wanted to move it on to this, but Josh Smith has done it for us. Well, let's just get straight into it. How likely do we think it is that Lewis Hamilton will retire this season? I'll give you my thoughts, and then I'll get yours, Mike. I don't think he's going to retire at all. Not this year. I don't think that's going to happen. However, there's definitely something going on behind the scenes, which is the reason that he hasn't just signed a contract. I absolutely believe he'll be there next year, but there's something that I don't think anyone can quite put their finger on fully yet, and I'd love to know your thoughts, so let us know in the chat why he hasn't put pen to paper yet. Any ideas, Mike?
I think Lewis is all about records. You know, he's smashed every record along the way so far. He needs that World Championship wins record. He doesn't want to equal Schumacher. He wants to beat Schumacher. Lewis Hamilton wants his name carved in stone on every Formula One circuit around the world, and then he'll retire. Because at the moment, he's there, but he's not still the greatest. He is technically the greatest modern driver that ever lived, but he's still not considered the greatest ever racing driver. People still go Senna, Schumacher, Fangio. People will still Moss. People, even though he never won a Grand Prix, people are still going to say that. And Lewis is all about smashing records. And I think he's going to do another season. He's going to smash all the records. But he won't do the next season unless, I think, what we said earlier, it's in the right package and Toto is his boss. Because those two have got some kind of bromance going on that makes me and you jealous. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Well, I think you've summed it up there, I think. And I'd love to know what you guys, I'll come into the chat in a moment, but I agree. I think there's no way Lewis will want to walk away when he's got the opportunity staring in front of him to take an 8th world title. Let's face it, the rules are not changing much for next year. The Mercedes is still going to be the car to beat. That opportunity is not guaranteed beyond next year when the rules do change. Mercedes may well come out in 22 with a great car, but it's not guaranteed. Next year, it pretty much is guaranteed. He's not going to walk away from that. But I think what you just touched on there, Mike, is Toto Wolff, who also hasn't yet signed a contract. So, are the two linked? Does Lewis only want to drive if Toto is staying? And is Lewis only want a 1-year contract, whereas Mercedes may want him to stay longer? I think there's loads of permutations, but there seems to be some kind of Mexican standoff right now, which is bizarre given that it's so close to the end of the season and the 7-time world champion, as it stands, still doesn't have a drive. Let's see what you guys are saying. Lewis to Red Bull, says Bert. I don't think so.
I don't think so,
he's not
no.
going to give up that opportunity for the 8th world title that easily. Here we go. Dylan Wheater says, Andy Cowell, who was, of course, the CEO of the Mercedes engine department, who stepped away from the teams, currently on gardening leave at the moment. Andy Cowell for team principal at Mercedes and Toto to be the owner of the team. That's quite interesting, and I'm not sure is a million miles from the truth. Toto said at the weekend that he's already lining somebody up to take over his role, whether that'll be immediately or next year or at some point in the future. He didn't specify, but he already said it's a man. He said and he said he knows who it is. He's not going to reveal that name yet, but Andy Cowell could be a good shout. He's led that Mercedes engine department to the greatness that they are. He's led a huge team of people. He's in the Mercedes family. I think he could be a good shout. So it's interesting how the Mercedes organisation shifts over the next few years, because what they've built now is why they've been so successful. The people they've got, the culture they've got is why they've been so successful. That's including Lewis, that's including Toto and everyone else that's involved there. If you start shifting that around, there's potential for things to start falling apart. So quite interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years to the mighty Mercedes. Yash Badge Pie says Toto and Lewis to become part owners. Could Lewis end up owning a bit of Mercedes? That's an interesting one. I'm not sure owning a Formula One team fits with Lewis's new green credentials. He's just set himself up with an Extreme E, this new environmental championship organisation. He's set up his own team. Does he want to invest in a Formula One team that's hugely polluting and unenvironmentally friendly? I'm not so sure.
That's interesting. That is interesting because Nico Rosberg, who did a fabulous podcast recently, is speaking about the guilt of his time in Formula One and how he's looking at nothing but green investments. He has actually started. His company started a green show, basically, where you get green tech, and it's a festival. That's right. And he's very much looking at his career, Nico, in Formula One, and thinking about the future and where it goes. And I think that's really interesting. What you're saying with Lewis investing in an Extreme E format, there must be a little bit of them wanting to offset what they've done, in the past. Let's offset that and do something good for the environment. Hence the reason why I just bought my first electric car.
Yes. Jago Bridgeland says, if Toto leaves, are we going to see something happen to Mercedes like what happened to Man United after Ferguson left? That's quite interesting because Toto's definitely the orchestrator behind all of this. But I do think what he's put in place, and even if he were to step away over a phased exit strategy, he's built a culture and an organisation that I think will be able to continue and operate successfully. But he's definitely the man. He's definitely the conductor at the front of that orchestra. So it'll be interesting to see. I hope they don't fall apart like Man United did.
I don't think so. For Alex Ferguson was very much the orchestra in the locker room. So you'd be in the locker room shouting and screaming at the players to do better. If Toto, let's say Toto got COVID, and please God, touch wood, he doesn't. But let's say he got COVID and he's knocked out for the next 2 races. Will the team be less of a team because he isn't there? No, they're still going to win the next 2 races. We know that. So there is a different mentality in place, and it's the team that he's built will continue and thrive.
Absolutely. Quick change of subject. Ben Kirby says, what electric car have you just bought, Mike?
I got the new Porsche type. I don't know how to say it. Nobody does. You speak to Porsche people now, they say Taycan. Everyone says something different, and I can't find the right interpretation. So I'm saying Taycan.
It's a great car. It's a great car.
Yeah, so I just got
when did you pick it
up? Saturday.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. It's a brilliant car. You're going to love it.
It's not as if I can go pick it up and drive it to a country pub either, is it? Because, Boris Johnson put pay to that, unfortunately.
Yes.
I can drive to yours, though. I can be in my car and come into your social bubble. I'm allowed to do that. You're allowed to have some people and one extra in your house or garden, so I can pick up the car, come to you, and me and you can sit in the garden, drink a bottle of. Well, I can have a glass of wine.
I've got no idea what the rules are, but I'll tell you what we can do. You can drive it because we're going next week to visit the Wheeler Dealers workshop.
We
together.
are, yes.
Bring it there.
Yes. I need to work out. I need to Google. Are the drink driving rules exactly the same in an electric car as in a petrol car as well? Or can I get away with a bit more? But what do you mean, officer? What are you on about, officer? It's got a computer. It's electric. Tin can. I said, what do you mean, officer? It's got computers and it's electric. You can't arrest me. The Porsche tin can. I'm going to call it that.
Shane Dunn says, is it the Turbo S, I hope?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, Shane. Thank you very much for asking. As soon as the car was launched, I ordered the Turbo S, and I've told Elvis this story before. I ordered Turbo S, and read every review, spent a fortune of money specking it up to the car that I wanted. Then the dealer phoned me and said, we've got a car for you to come and demonstrate. So I went to the dealer, jumped in a 4S at the dealers, because that's all they have as a demonstrator, peeled out of the dealership onto a single track or double track road at single lane either direction, and sat behind a truck doing 50 miles an hour for 2 miles. But I was happy with that because I was looking at the dashboard, the buttons, the dials, the seats. I was playing with things. And then after 2 miles, I thought, well, I need to get past this lorry now and see what it's got squirt-wise. And I was doing 50 miles an hour behind this lorry. And I was in economy mode. I was in beginner's mode. And there was nothing coming the other way, completely legal. I pulled out, stamped on the accelerator. My kidneys hit the rear seat. And by the time I went past the lorry and pulled back in, please don't repeat this to the policeman, I was doing 102. So at that moment, I turned the car around. I drove back to the dealer. I cancelled the Turbo S. I said, I don't need that. Why would I pay 50 grand more to go a second faster when this is already ridiculous? So I bought the 4S instead. But I spec'd it up like you can't believe.
It's a great car.
It's got every bell, toy and whistle on it. It's going to be great.
Yash says, can we get a drag race between the two of you? Well, my Range Rover against your Porsche, there's no contest.
No. But unless you got that Model 3, that would probably give it a good run for its money.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about a Model 3. I would love a Tesla at some stage, so watch this space. Right, let's get back to Formula 1, because Bongi Mabida says, Lewis has beaten 3 F1 champions at their peaks as teammates in equal machinery. What more value in an F1 great do you want? I totally agree. Lewis is an unbelievable champion, unbelievable driver. His value is still going up because I feel like he's still improving. He's still delivering incredible race wins and executing perfect strategic races. His tyre management has become better and better. Lewis's value is still going up, even at the age he's at now. So he's a brilliant champion. I'm a massive supporter. 72 Defender says, Lewis back to McLaren to close out his career. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I can't see it happening. It would be quite nice, wouldn't it? Go full circle.
It would be nice.
But I can't see it. He's a Mercedes man through and through now.
He is now. He's got a fleet of them in his garage. You can't get rid of all those and buy McLarens now. That'd be ridiculous.
He's probably got a McLaren or two tucked away somewhere.
He probably has, yeah. It's funny what your previous question was about him being he's beaten 3 world champions on his way to becoming the best world champion. There's something about world champions, though. It happened to Vettel, it happened to Schumacher. When they just become repeated winners at races, they start to become the fall guy that people just want to lay the boot into and kick and say, oh, not again, we can't stand this guy. He always wins. So although they live in a world of success, they have these people that want to kick them and knock them down because they are so successful, and it becomes repetitive for them. So it's a funny little world he lives in. So
move it on slightly to Max Verstappen. Quickly, we'll talk about Max Verstappen's tyre, because he had a massive blowout, if you remember, on the race on Sunday. Seemed like it was debris because it was an instantaneous blowout. And unbelievably, did you notice this? The cameras, of all the track cameras they have around that circuit, and there are loads of them, they didn't seem to cover it well enough. We caught the tail end of the spin, which is very unusual for Formula One. But it seemed like it was an instantaneous failure, so possibly running over some debris that had been there from earlier on. And that, of course, ruined his race, which was looking really good. It was great, wasn't it, the battle between him and Bottas? But the question that I've just seen come through there is, and Mike, I'll put this to you. Wouldn't it be great to see Lewis, before he goes, have a proper challenge from either a Max Verstappen or a Charles Leclerc? Wouldn't it be great to get one of those two, a Red Bull or a Ferrari, in the same sort of performance league, to see them up against each other?
First and foremost, on that race, Max was very unhappy with the car. He told his engineer to shut up during the race. I've got this, if you remember rightly. So Max wasn't happy with the car. So I think Max was defeated before the puncher, because he was already going down. He was already going, in my mind, he was already going down that slope of moaning every decision.
He was never going to win. But he had got past Bottas, so I think he'd settled in and accepted second.
Second, yes. He settled in and accepted second. But he was never... He was already... To get to second, he moaned his way to second with his engineer. I think, he told him to turn the radio off or whatever. I think what's interesting in that question is you said Leclerc or Verstappen taking the fight to Lewis. And the one person who can take the fight to Lewis still is Bottas, who out-qualified him, and yet somehow Bottas can't...
going to love this.
Yeah, somehow Bottas can't seem to turn that into that. I'm pretty sure once those two are at that level in the garage, it stops becoming about the machinery and the quality of the driver, because they both got it. It just comes down to who's got the psychological battle, who is the one that is more... psychologically present in the team that's going to show the way, and that at the moment clearly is Lewis. I can't see that coming from Leclerc at the moment, but I can definitely see it coming from Verstappen. Verstappen's got the sharpest elbows in Formula One. That guy, he's got swords on his elbows. He's determined to muscle his way to the top. We all know he's going to be a future world champion, and he will get there. Come do or die, he will get there. Either that or he crashed a car every race to get there. And that's the one thing that I love about Verstappen.
I agree. And I can tell you that from being on the inside of a team, you're quite happy with that. If your driver's all or nothing, and I had this with Kimi, you don't mind if occasionally he crashes, if you know that he's giving it everything, because more occasions than not, that will come to fruition. He'll get the very best out of the car, whether it's a win or just a great result. And occasionally it will go wrong, but you accept that. And I think that's what Red Bull are like with Verstappen. They accept that he's absolutely 100% all the time on everything. And occasionally it goes wrong, but when it doesn't, he delivers something special. So I agree. I think he's an incredible talent. I think he's, it'd be great to see him in a really top car, a car that can challenge for a championship. I saw somebody just say Lewis doesn't need to prove himself against Max. Lewis doesn't need to prove himself against anybody, but from an entertainment perspective, it would be great to see what we probably assume are the greatest talents in our sport today closely matched and against each other. And maybe in 2022, when we get this levelling out of the playing field, we might get an opportunity to see that. Let's hope. Right, what have we got? 5 minutes left. George Alaimo says Mike would be quicker than Bottas.
I'll tell you what, the centre of gravity would be a lot lower. That's the one thing. They would need to pump up the tyres a little bit if I was in the car to stop those barge boards scraping on the ground. But I've driven Formula One cars, a couple actually, in anger and at speed.
I know, I'm not jealous at all.
On Formula One circuits, and they're not easy to drive. These cars, they look like they're an Xbox. You sit in them, and maybe they are a little bit easier today. But when I drove the cars, they were big, scary, nasty, gnarly. We're going to kill you at every opportunity. Beasts, and it takes a certain character to be able to manhandle one of those at the limits they're on. Bear in mind, it's quite a funny story. And it's a good one to share with the audience. When I was in Schumacher's winning Benetton car at the Magny Cours circuit, I did the fastest lap out of all the privateers. I did the fastest lap of the day, which I can't remember. I'm going to make this up. Say it was 1:52. All right, ran Magny Court circuit. I did a 1:52 lap, and everyone went, "That's brilliant. That's a great lap." The next one closest to me was 2:11. So everyone's going, "Oh, you can drive. That was 1:52." When I come back to the garage and my chest is out, my chin's in the air, I'm strutting down a paddock thinking, "I've got this. I've got this." Some French guy just gesticulated to me, he's one of the marshals, and pulled me over to the stewards' building where all the control tower. Pulled me over to the building, and then he pointed to the lap record, and he pushed his finger up this piece of brass to the lap record, and it was Nigel Mansell in the Cannons Williams, and his lap was 1:27. And then he said to me, "You think you're fast?" When you were at the backside of the circuit, Nigel Mansell had already crossed the finishing line, and when he said it like that, my world just it collapsed. I was like, "God Almighty, I'm crap. I'm so crap." So to be able to do that, to be able to do that is a skill level that we sit and watch it on TV. We admire it. Some of us may think it looks like a load of millionaires getting paid to run around in circles, but no, truthfully, it's a skill set that none of us have got. It's a very unique person that can do it.
Absolutely. Right, so a couple of minutes to go. Lots of people asking if Lewis Hamilton could go to Formula E. I can't see it, and the reason I can't see it is that he's just committed to Extreme E, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's this new electric kind of off-road type championship. It's actually linked to Formula E. Formula E have actually just bought a stake in Extreme E. The two are run by the same people, but Lewis has sort of nailed his flag to that, as has Nico Rosberg. In fact, they've both
and
Jensen
Button
in that.
and Jensen Button. Not set up a team. Jensen's got a drive in it.
Oh, fantastic! That's great news.
I spoke to him last week. Yes.
Brilliant. That might be an exclusive, because I'm not sure that's been announced yet. You might have just blown it for him.
Sorry, gents. I do apologise.
You heard it here first. So I can't see Lewis going to Formula E because of that. I think this Extreme E is a brand new thing. Seems like it'll get the most coverage at the time. I think it's going to be really interesting too. David Marshall, it was asked if Lewis would go to Formula E. So I don't think so, David. Last couple. Fire Up says, will Lewis race in Extreme E? Don't know yet. He hasn't actually said. So the way that Extreme E works is that each team has to have two drivers, one male and one female. They're trying to push boundaries in all sorts of areas. It could well be that Lewis, I can't see him not wanting to at least test the car. Whether he'll commit to a championship or not, we'll wait and see. He hasn't even committed to Formula One yet.
Lewis, if he signs Formula One back with Mercedes, he'll have a very fat version of this, which will be a contract that will stop him doing extreme skiing, water skiing, jet skiing, playing football. It will stop him doing those kind of, and it is called Extreme E, so it's not a very good thing to write into a Mercedes contract.
Ben Kirby says, Mike's definitely just broken that news about Jensen Button.
Sorry.
There you go. Bottas tested one of those cars as well. He did, actually, that's true. Bottas is a guy that's got to keep his options open all the time because he's on these continuous 1-year rolling contracts and nothing beyond that. So he's also a Finnish guy, so he loves a bit of sideways action in a car. I think we're going to have to wrap it up. It's 10 o'clock. That's flown by. Someone's just said, can we have another 30 minutes? But I'd love to.
Happy.
I know you would. You could talk all night, Mike. I've got to go and fill my glass.
You go and fill that glass of wine, brother.
Well, listen, thank you all for watching and for all your comments. The chat has been brilliant all week. It's been going all week, in fact, and I'm sorry we had to delay this by a day, but I really appreciate you joining a day late. Mike, it's been great. I've loved the fact you've stayed on, because I only thought you were going to join for the first bit to talk about wheeler dealers, but you've stayed for the whole thing, so I really appreciate that.
Well, let's hope we do it again. Me and you are going to be working closely together, and every now and then I'd love the opportunity to pop on and talk to your audience. I love Formula One. Obviously, I love cars. It's as simple as that. And again, thank you for all your questions earlier. Thank you for letting me do this, Elvis. I absolutely loved it, and can't wait to get to work.
Absolutely. Somebody has just said, can we do one of these from the new Wheeler Dealers Workshop? I reckon we probably
100%.
could.
100%. Done.
All right, you're on. Okay, we'll leave it there, but thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Have a great week. I'll be back at some point this week with some more nonsense. And then we've got the Turkish Grand Prix, of course, next week, which I'm really looking forward to. So have a great one. We'll see you both soon. And thanks again for all your messages of support regarding yesterday's news around wheeler dealers. Love you all. See you later.
Ta-ra.